Okay. Hi. Uh, Welcome to Cyber Risk Ready channel, Passion and Hard Work show. Myself, as your host, and Brian O'Hare as our co-host. So this is a channel where we explore the stories and challenges and strategies that help cybersecurity professionals grow their careers and stay ahead of the game in a fast-paced industry. The last show that we had, we talked about cybersecurity certifications from like ISACA and ISC Square. We talked a little bit about CompTIA. Today, we're going to focus in on SANS and some of the certifications or exams, courses that they have. And towards the end, we're going to talk about some pathways. So 3 pathways that that you might have for cybersecurity certifications. So with that in mind, hey, Brian, welcome.
Good to be here again, Tom. It's a beautiful Friday morning.
It is. Yeah, we're going to get a little bit of snow here pretty soon. So I know up where you're at, it might be a little sparse, but I'm looking forward to a nice leisurely snow, something that's going to be
nice for the weekend.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's jump right in. And so I'm going to bring up a slide here that is just kind of a general SANS kind of a slide. And I know we talked about the different courses that SANS has a little bit on our last show. And I've got a link here to the SANS courses, but and I believe there's like over 75 or 80 courses that SANS offers.
Big organization, yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on SANS, Brian?
Well, so I was thinking about this before the show started. If you there's a reason why all these organizations exist. They meet a need of some kind. And from my perspective, what SANS does is a little bit more on the lines of in CompTIA, you have to know how some things are done, but you don't actually have to do them. In SANS courseware, you have to do them. You not only learn what penetration testing is, you actually do penetration testing. It's hands-on, down in the weeds, get on your keyboard, do some work stuff. It's not book reading. It's not studying for an exam. It's down in the weeds. This is how it's done. So if you're a keyboard jock, that's what I would call you. If you're a keyboard jock, SANS is the way to go. That's where you need to go to actually learn how to do this stuff in minutia. I mean, they're incredible. Their trainings are incredibly good. Most of them are 5 to 6 days long. So this isn't where you go and sit down for a couple hours and do something online and then take an exam. It's way more intense than that. And their exams are not easy to pass. They're tough exams. But when you come out of there, you can go anywhere and do what they say you can do. If you can't do what that course requires, you won't pass.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
I've known several folks over the years that have taken SANS courses, and they're among some of the best. So when they get out of those, they understand exactly what's going on, as you mentioned, and how to actually get the work done.
Yeah, if you're moving up in management, being a keyboard jock may not be the thing for you. That's where I think the other organizations like ISC Squared and ISACA come in. Is if you've got 5 or 10 years experience in the field and you're moving up and you're no longer a keyboard jock, you're actually managing other security personnel inside your organization, then you need some more training. You need some more book training on how to manage people, how to handle projects, project portfolios, all that kind of stuff. But if you want to know the down and dirty, there's one right there, hacker tools, techniques, and incident handling. You will know all the hacker tools, the techniques to use them, and what incident handling is all about when you finish that course. Which is one of the reasons they're very expensive too.
They are pricey. So if you go out and you check the pricing on that, I mean, they are pretty steep. But as you mentioned, I mean, it's not a self-study course, so they're hands-on, and so that's
very much so.
That's a great
very
thing.
much so. And their instructors are some of the best in the world.
They are very good. They're very good. Let me change slides here a little bit and kind of flip over to this. This is one where we're really talking about beneficial SANS courses for beginners. And, when I went out and I started looking at the different courses that SANS really offered They certainly offer a wide range of the highly technical
Mhm.
kinds of things. But the more I thought about, if I was an entry level guy trying to or gal trying to get into this profession, what would I really want to know? What would I need to know?
Right.
And so I settled on these four, and I thought we could spend a couple of minutes to, kind of chatting about these. Uh, and so we can start with this course 275, the Foundations for Cybersecurity. And I really like that one because that is really the baseline for for understanding the market, from a technical standpoint, and that kind of thing. Have you ran into anybody, Brian, who's taken that course or familiar with it at all?
I have not, although I've met with and talked to several SANS instructors over the years. And one of the other things that's real interesting is that because they spend so much time in the field working these courses. Again, these are 5 to 6 day courses sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, when you see 301 and 401 and 450, those courses build very closely on the lower level courses. So when you take 275, you have to take 275 so you'll understand what's going on in 301, because 301 builds on 275. So it's not like they're disjointed security trainings that okay, I want to go look at security operations and analysis. Well, if you take that course, you're going to be lost if you haven't taken 275 or 301. You need to understand those concepts, et cetera, in order to do well in a higher level course like that. So I always caution students, don't bite into one of those high end courses because you're going to be lost.
Yeah.
They're very well stacked in terms of content, building on content.
Yeah, I'm looking over here at some quick notes. So 275, cybersecurity concepts, some terminology, basic coding,
Mhm.
looks like for information security professionals, and command line tools and scripting. And over the years, there's from my standpoint, there's been a lot of tools and those kinds of things. Everybody's got a tool for something. But it's interesting from my standpoint to look at what goes on with scripting, right? And there seems to be a trend now where people are kind of getting back to maybe not like DOS kind of commands, right?
Right.
But people are opting for those, more quick things on the keyboard than a tool.
Well, one of the reasons for that is the growth and popularity of Python. Python's an outstanding scripting language. It's fairly easy to get going up and quick and learn some basic skills. That's probably what they're teaching in that class, although they may teach some batch shell scripting as well as, I doubt they teach any Microsoft batch processing. They might, but more Linux batch skills, which are really powerful when it comes to managing this stuff. I have a good friend, a former student, who manages a very large network here in Fort Wayne, nationwide, and he couldn't manage it without scripting. He just couldn't do it without his Python skills. That's how he updates software. That's how he runs analysis on devices to find out whether they're working properly, et cetera. So without those coding skills, he couldn't do it. Now, he's not a developer, but he certainly knows how to program in Python in terms of at the scripting level.
Sure. Yeah, it's been interesting to me, talking to different organizations just about how important that is anymore, and just that shift away from just a tool for everything to just getting right into the
Well, the other thing that's really
PowerShell and those kinds of
yeah,
things.
PowerShell is another one. I didn't think to mention that, but PowerShell is extremely powerful. Um, those are some of the tools that they use for log analysis, which is a big part of cybersecurity. Is when you're looking at 18 million log files, how are you going to make sense out of any of that? You can't
Right.
without scripting, and so those skills become real important in terms of managing what's going on in your network. How do you know whether or not you're being attacked? How do you know what kind of things are going on in your network? Whether things are happening that shouldn't be, or if users are doing the right stuff.
Yep. Um, 301, Introduction to Cybersecurity. So the notes I have on that are really about cybersecurity fundamentals, networking basics, defense strategies against common attacks,
Right.
those kinds of things. So, what are your thoughts, Brian, on for an entry level person, someone needing to have a good understanding of infrastructure and that kind of thing, which it looks like this might zero in on.
Well, I think it's vital. When I was teaching at Ivy Tech years ago, one of the things that I beat on pretty hard was the network foundations, the OSI stack, just understanding what's happening at what level in the network at any given moment so that you can make sharp decisions about what's going on. It's sad, but it's not uncommon to see a student or a help desk person just make outlandish claims because they don't really understand the stack, the IP stack, and what's happening at what level, and they therefore make erroneous assumptions and erroneous conclusions. And all of this really helps you take that apart so you understand very clearly what's an HTTP error versus what's a network error versus what's a hardware error. That makes sense?
It does, absolutely.
Those are the kinds of things that you learn in there when you're talking about cybersecurity concepts, tools, and best practices. How do you identify that stuff? How do you know what's going on in your network without understanding the concepts and understanding the tools used to be able to analyze the traffic that's happening on your network?
Yeah.
So that's
SEC 401, Security Essentials, Network, Endpoint, and Cloud. The notes that I have on that are networking and cloud security basics, which I know that's near and dear to your heart. You've got a lot of experience working and offering materials on that. Secure systems configurations and introduction to cryptography and incident response. So networking and cloud basics.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things that I think we're a technical editor and author on the was it the ISC squared?
Yeah, I co-authored the ISC squared book on the CCSP certification, cloud certified cloud security professional. So at this level, you're still learning just the basics of cloud. How do I want to say this? How the cloud works. How do cloud computers connect to the network? How are cloud computers maintained? How do you secure those systems? It doesn't quite get into all of the privacy and security stuff that you might run into in the CCSP, for instance, where you have to understand laws, code, especially in the European Union, Canada, Asia, South Pacific. Everybody has different rules around security and privacy, and you have to know that in order to be a cloud professional, because data moves between geographical boundaries and political boundaries. It's only been in the last 5 years where, for instance, Microsoft, if you're a bank, you can go to Microsoft and say, our cloud data needs to stay within the confines of the continental United States. And they'll go, okay. They make sure that your data stays here because all the laws of the United States apply. If that data were to leak or to be stored somewhere in the EU or in Eastern Europe or in Southeast Asia, different rules apply. And all of a sudden, you don't have a handle on who can get access to that data, et cetera. So that's important stuff.
Sure. I'm glad you brought up the legal issues around data, because I'm not sure that people understand what those are and how those really come into play. Mm-hmm. And I know early on, going through the CISSP training, mm-hmm. Certification process that I know we both went through, they talk about that, I think, as I recall, a lot, mm-hmm. About making sure that you know where your data is and how it's traveling through the internet.
Right.
Because as you transpose or you go through those different geographical regions, the laws associated with whatever that region is applies.
Right.
So,
right.
And I'm not sure people understand that.
So just a simple little example, which doesn't have anything to do with cloud per se, but it's an example of the differences in geopolitical boundaries. Is in the EU now, as of this month, it's illegal to make phones that use Lightning connectors. They have to be USB-C. The EU said, sorry, Apple, no more Lightning connectors. Everything has to be USB-C. We've decided that's the platform that everybody in the EU is going to stick to. So Apple has rushed around making all kinds of adapters for their phones and for their older phones, that kind of stuff. And everything has to go to USB-C now, which pushes the rest of the world, because the EU is a huge market. It then pushes the rest of the world to the same standard when they do that. The same thing happens with data privacy laws and regulations around cloud data. The EU has their own set of rules about that, and depending on how strict or not strict they are, they have a profound influence on the privacy and security laws inside the United States, inside Australia, inside Southeast Asia, et cetera. And so it's a real changing environment. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, excuse me. Well, one of the things that it triggered for me was the whole TikTok discussion. And so we don't have time to get into it today, but maybe
Sure.
the upcoming show, we can talk more about TikTok. And
It's a real hot topic with law
it,
enforcement.
it is. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. So, secure, the other thing that's part of this, secure systems configuration. Mm-hmm. It's difficult for organizations, I think, to kind of get their head around what that really means. And there are, back early on, the small to medium-sized businesses, excuse me, they had one server, or a couple of machines and those kinds of things. And now you have this huge hybrid environment, right, where part of it's sitting at the customer site or at the location, physical location.
Right.
Part of it's, on the web in Azure or AWS.
Yep.
And so understanding and working through how to configure and manage those configurations, it's complex.
It is. And again, I'll go back to that foundational class where you learn scripting skills. That's where PowerShell comes in extremely important in the Microsoft world, in terms of that's how you develop your images. Is you use PowerShell to script those images so that you know what's being pushed out on your network. You know whether or not it's been secured or not. Secured or not. So again, you can see where they build on those skills at each level of the courseware.
Right.
It's real important to have good, solid foundations and all that.
Let me pull this slide up again, so we can.
Especially when it comes to systems, Tom, because sometimes you're talking thousands of systems, and you have to keep them all secure. It only takes one mistake to cost your company a lot of money and a lot of headache. And it's really complicated. And the only way to do it is with consistent image building, which goes back to scripting, programming languages, SMS you talked about earlier, all that kinds of stuff. So,
sure. And there's a lot of tools out there, SIM tools, and essentially that's what they're doing, right? I mean, they're using that type of language to go in and pull those logs and do the correlations and that kind of jazz.
And if I could mention something else, on the SEC 450, they talk about security operations centers. Well, back in the day, we had in-house staff who managed the servers, but because the servers are all in the cloud now, that doesn't necessarily have to happen. That's very much automated by robotics. If a hard drive fails at a server in Nevada, a robot simply goes in the dark, because there's no lights on. It helps keep the place cooler. A robot just goes in, pulls the drive out, puts a new one in, and goes away and disposes of it. It's all roboticized. It's all scripted, managed. But you need a security operations center to have visibility into those operations, because they're not on site anymore. And they could be anywhere in the world. You don't really know. You're just connecting to the services that you're paying for, unless you have a specific contract stipulating where that data is. And even if you stipulate it that's going to stay in the contiguous United States, there's multiple data centers in the United States. In fact, that's one of the ways that the cloud has become so popular, is they give you multiple points of failure that, or I should say, I guess, multiple points of backup, so that if a particular spot were to fail, your data is somewhere else as well, so that there's no interruption in services, or very, very little interruption in services. One of the most powerful things about the cloud.
Excuse me, those tools, Brian, those SIM tools, what have you seen over the last couple of years with regards to the advancement of those, not counting AI, because I think AI is new.
AI is moving into it. AI is definitely creeping into it. There's no question. AI can do all kinds of scripting stuff for you, so you don't actually have to write the code. That's the benefit of it. The problem is if you don't know how to write the code, you don't know how to check to make sure AI did it properly. So there's still a need for human intervention in there. I think this stuff just continues to get better. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than that. It's each year, there's a whole nother iteration of, well, what are you doing in Python now? Well, now the rage is this, now the rage is that. As we learn more about cloud-based security, since almost everything is cloud-based anymore, very little local data that isn't at least backed up or synchronized to the cloud. For instance, I can take and I kind of brag about this, I can take my iPhone, go out and put it underneath the rear tire of my truck and run over it and open a new one in a box. In less than 30 minutes, I got a fully functioning phone again with all my apps on it. It's that easy to do. Same thing with my desktop. I could blow my desktop up. I could erase everything off of it and rebuild it. And in 30 minutes, all my data will be back. In fact, I did that recently. And all I did was go into my configuration and hit a checkbox and boom, everything on my desktop reappeared instantly. So
yeah,
I don't know where it's going. I can't give you any predictions. I'm too old for that. All I can say is it's getting more and more sophisticated by the month, not by the year, but by the month. Every month, something new is coming out that you can use on both sides of the aisle to deal with these kinds of things.
Sure.
But I guess maybe if I could interject one more thing about the Security Operations Center, that also is a great proving ground for I want to stop saying younger, for up and coming professionals. That's a great opportunity for you to get your hands really dirty, because you're going to, in a Security Operations Center, you're going to see desktops, servers, iPhones, Android phones, iPads, and all kinds of stuff with data on it that your employees are walking around using every day trying to get their jobs done. And the Security Operations Center is the heart of all of that stuff that's happening in your organization. So if you have an opportunity to work in the Security Operations Center, I'd say jump on it. You'll learn a wealth of knowledge.
That brings up a question, I guess. For folks that are just getting in to the information security space, the ability to take one of these courses, one of the SANS courses, and maybe the one we've been talking about on Blue Team Fundamentals 450, and get into an entry-level SOC job, that may not be possible, especially with
Sure.
AI and all the things that are happening in the analyst space. And so what are your thoughts on getting just a simple break fix job, and I use simple, pretty broadly, but those things can be pretty complex, but there's a lot of stuff that somebody can learn just getting into the space by getting an entry-level job, setting up machines,
Sure.
going through that kind of process.
Not only that, but it gives you the opportunity to become familiar with the people who do work in those Security Operations Center, to find out about when opportunities arise for you to be able to go to your boss and say, hey, by the way, I took this course. I think I'm ready to move on up. And because that's what we're really talking about is how do you build your career over time? One of the ways is by taking courses. One of the other ways is by grabbing opportunities in places like the Security Operations Center. So you can still come in at a help desk level and work your way up. In fact, I'm trying to think of the org right now off the top of my head. I'm blanking where the gentleman who's now the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, started as a help desk attendant in that organization. It wasn't Michigan. I'm trying to think of who it was that I worked with. But that's where they started, was at the help desk. They're now the chief security officer for the organization. So you just got to go in there and fight and, grab every opportunity that you can.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Sure.
That insight. Let me get this going here. So, Brian, here are a few courses that SANS offers specific to AI.
Yeah.
And so I know we've had a ton of conversations about AI and the impact that that has on the information security industry.
Right.
Um, but I wanted to go ahead and get this slide up, and I think maybe we can do a show on AI specifically somewhere in the near future. But from a entry level standpoint, excuse me, and I know these 500 level courses are certainly not entry
Right.
level,
Right.
but you have to start somewhere.
Right.
And so this 247 course is a basic course that gets into some of the ethics around uh, you know AI and how to actually put structures, maybe governance structures in place.
Right.
What else should folks be thinking about, in your view, on AI and the information security space?
So my advice is learn whatever you can, wherever you can, whenever you can. Plain and simple. AI is going to absolutely revolutionize the business. One of the reasons is because you've got a supercomputer doing your job for you. Your job is going to become supervising that. For lack of a better term, maybe you might want to think of it as another employee who works for you. That AI engine is designing and doing all kinds of stuff. It can do very, very sophisticated modeling and problem solving that you may not be prepared to do. The entry level courses get you equipped to work with AI, but you notice the 500 level courses, that stuff on, how do you really do this? What is a large language model? I don't even know what that is. And I read up stuff on AI every day. So my advice to any up and comer is learn whatever you can, as much as you can, as fast as you can about AI, because it's going to absolutely revolutionize this space.
Mhm. Well, one of the things that I've seen a lot of organizations do, and maybe not so much now, but when AI first came out, it was really about let's get it installed. Let's start dumping our data into the model so we can do some analysis on it, or start doing analysis on kind of what we do and how we go about doing it.
Right.
But there wasn't a lot of thought put into the security components tied into that, and making sure that there was privacy involved, or that you actually had a standalone version of chat, for example, and you put that up on Azure in your private business cloud, and that kind of thing, so that when you're uploading that data, only you have, as a business or an individual, have access to that. And I know there's some examples around where folks have ran into that kind of thing, but have you had some experience with that, or seen that in the market spot that you've been working in?
So I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you reframe it for me?
Sure. Yeah. So it's really about the basic, the fundamental security controls that
Hmm.
need to be in place if you're using AI for your business. If you're feeding data into the model.
My experience is there isn't any. Everybody's just shooting from the hip right now. I was at a business not too long ago where they brought me in and asked me a couple of questions. It was a family member, so it wasn't an official consulting gig, but they asked me a couple of questions, and I said they had a problem with their email policy that they needed to update. And he just picked up his phone and generated a new policy with ChatGPT. Boom, done. Didn't bother to check it. Just said, "Does that do what you say?" And I go, "Yeah." And that was it. They implemented it. There's a new policy. Push. It's that simple. The thing where I see AI really taken off is, and you're right, there are some privacy concerns. I can tell you this, for example, with one of the large hospitals in this area, they're currently using an AI model. So when you go in to see your physician, they push a button and they no longer type while you're talking to them. That whole session is now being recorded.
Right.
And AI takes that and transcribes it, allows you to visually read it to see whether or not there are any mistakes, and then stores it in the cloud. Just imagine if you're doing that with 30 to 50 to 100,000 patients every day, and that database gets breached. Wow. Wow. Private conversations with your physician are being stored in the cloud. Most people don't know that. They don't understand it. They don't care. They're just there to see their physician. Physicians are trying to find ways to see more patients with less work. It's there are a lot of sticky ethical questions and implications around all of that that I just don't know that we have answers for yet. But people are still moving ahead with it. They're not letting it slow them down in the slightest.
Yeah, more to come for sure.
Yeah, I told you it's going to revolutionize what we do. Absolutely will. Here's an example I was thinking of a minute ago with my friend who manages the large network up here. Let's say he has to cull through 7 million log file entries. 7 million. That's not a lot for a large network. Okay. Right. And he wants to find any anomalies. Well, he can write a script that will say, look for this and this. If he makes a typo, it's not going to work. And then he has to deploy it. Then he has to run it. Then he has to double check the results, et cetera, et cetera. AI can do all of this with a simple command. You can simply say to AI, spot check it. Give me this number. Here are the parameters. And it'll do it in the blink of an eye, rather than spending hours writing code, culminating, oh, I forgot this, I need to add that. I remember when my friend he'd write a script and run it, and then later on go, oh, you know what, I forgot something, I got to add that to it. Whereas AI wouldn't have forgotten it. It would have nailed it on the first try.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I've been pretty fascinated with is just, when you look at, the SIM model, mm-hmm. and how enterprise organizations are trying to figure out how to not only, correlate better with, the logs coming into their SIM, but using AI to develop advanced response tactics.
Right.
So that once they
analysis. Yeah, analysis and response, because they've got to understand what they're looking at first before they implement those rules. But it's all, for lack of a better term, rule based. It hasn't become sentient enough that it can make decisions on its own yet. So you've got to give it some parameters. You got to say, if this, then that, if this, then that, and you have to do that somehow. Just depends on where it's pulling information, because what it's going to do is go out to the internet and it's going to look at 5,000 examples of the script that you want, and it's going to pull it back and write one for you, but it's going to do it all in the blink of an eye, rather than taking hours or days to develop an applicable script for your situation.
Yeah. More to come for sure.
Lots more to come.
Yeah, lots more to come. So, Brian, one of the things we talked about, in the last show that we had, and some conversations in between, is really kind of come up with some pathways that folks can entry-level folks can use. And so we really determined that there were 3 levels, right? There's the general level, there's more of a technical level, and then there's a higher level that has to do with more GRC, right? Governance, risk, and risk. And so here, this pathway 1, the security generalist, is one. What are your thoughts on that? And I pulled in the courses from the different organizations that seem like they would fit into this role.
Yeah, I like CompTIA stuff a lot. When I taught, that was all that we did was Security Plus, Network Plus. They just released the cloud certification. They're beginning to build those certifications. At the time that I was teaching, the Security Plus was the only certification. The IT fundamentals and cybersecurity technician were not exams at that point. They hadn't yet developed the courseware to follow up for that. But the Security Plus, for instance, I taught an entire semester-long course that would prep you for that exam. So this CompTIA is again much more hands-on. How you do it. There's an explanation it involves. For instance, one of the things that students struggled with the most in the Security Plus curriculum was public key encryption, public key infrastructure, PKI. Understanding how those public-private keys work was always sort of a brain tease for them. So there's some real important stuff in there that you have to get your arms around before you move on. But I think this is a great level. These are typically designed for either 2-year technical colleges or the first 2 years in an engineering school, where you might have the ability, because a lot of engineering schools won't offer entry-level security courses. They'll only offer the higher level stuff after you finish programming classes. So that's why the CompTIA has widely targeted 2-year technical schools with their certifications. So this is really great stuff for 2-year students. You can see there security analyst, junior SOC analyst, IT security administrator. Those are sort of semi-entry level positions. And that's what these certifications are really good for. It's good hands-on stuff. It's not super high level, but you got a good solid foundation. If you were to go through these certifications, you should be able to go into a SANS course and knock it out of the park.
Sure.
Don't have any trouble with a SANS course.
And for clarity, so these CompTIA courses, you mentioned a lot of 2-year college programs are zeroing in and offering these or variations of these.
4 years.
But you can do these CompTIA courses from a wide range of organizations. I think that those things are out there.
Yeah, you could actually be working at a job at a help desk or something and study for these exams and pass them. Again, the course material that we developed, in particular at Ivy Tech, was targeted at these certifications. So we already knew what they were going to ask, and we targeted the curriculum to meet those needs. So there's kind of a one-to-one relationship. If you took the security course when you were finished, not only were you should be prepped and ready to take the Security Plus exam and pass it, but you even get an exam voucher as part of your class materials.
Great. Yeah, that's important, because one of the things that I've recognized in my own journey is, the expense of exams, certification exams.
Right.
And
there's financial boundaries. Yeah, there's financial boundaries. Yeah, I think if you it used to be, I haven't looked at one for quite a while, but it used to be a Security Plus certification. If you went and bought it retail yourself, it was about $275. So it was not cheap. But normally you got that with some kind of courseware, because CompTIA works really closely with 2-year colleges and universities around the country, I mean.
Okay. Sure. Pathway 2, technical.
Yeah, see, now you're getting into real hands-on keyboard jock stuff. The Cisco Certified Cyber Ops, and in particular, Certified Ethical Hacker. To pass that Certified Ethical Hacker program, you have to actually perform a hack. That's part of the courseware and part of the certification as well. So it's not just sit down and read a book and understand it. You've actually got to be able to do it from the keyboard. Sure.
Yeah. One of the things that I've liked, thoroughly enjoyed, I guess, working with the wide range of folks that I've had to work with over the last several years, is just, the understanding of really what goes on in this certified ethical hacking training.
Right.
Because there are so many folks that look at, they might look at the logs and, try to understand or parse kind of what's going on from, one system or one environment to the next, and look at those correlations. But when you really start doing the analysis of what's going on in that environment, you really need to have a good understanding of what's happening here,
right?
From an ethical or from a hacker standpoint, so you can get a better track of the implications of one activity versus the next.
Right, because what you're learning in this class is what the bad guys are using against you. Mm-hmm. They're learning these same skills. That's why this whole conversation we're having, it really is about what you're doing is you're mirroring the bad guys. They're taking the same courses, they're learning the same stuff as you. They just might have a full-time 5-day-a-week, 40-hour-a-week job doing it versus you only doing it part-time. Sure. That's the real difference, is the bad guys are doing this full-time and you're not.
Well, one of the things that I thought was of very high value is just this whole MITRE ATT&CK framework. And when you start trying to understand what's happening, and especially explaining what goes on to administrators that maybe aren't familiar with information security, being able to use the MITRE ATT&CK framework to say, hey, this is kind of where it starts. and here are the different avenues that an
Right.
attacker can take to get from point A to point B within your environment.
And that changes every couple of years too, Tom. I mean, the MITRE that only just appeared in the last year, I think.
Mhm.
And so that's all the more reason why you got to get moving on this. There's no time like the present to get involved and start climbing your way up the ladder, because we are. I don't want to get all political on you, but we're pretty much at war with these guys.
Yeah.
They're hell bent on destroying our critical infrastructures, and it's up to us to take care of it. And if we don't, shame on us.
Right.
Shame on us. We need to be throwing everything we can, including the kitchen sink, back at these guys, because they're certainly throwing it at us.
Absolutely. And, interestingly enough, there's a lot of folks that I've talked to over the last year and a half, since AI has become more prevalent, about the fact that we shouldn't even be working or doing anything with AI. And I recognize that, and these aren't technical people, right? These are
Right.
other folks, right? But what they don't really understand is that our adversaries are using this technology to advance the attacks on our critical infrastructure, as you mentioned.
Sure.
And the only way that we're going to be able to keep up with it and make things happen is to really bolster that and build those processes up for ourselves.
Yeah. How are we doing on time, Tom?
Yeah, we're running a little short, so let's kind of get rolling here. So, item number 3: pathways to governance, risk, and compliance. And I know this is an area, Brian, that you and I both are zeroed in on. So you spent a lot of time in the governance, risk, and compliance space.
Yeah, this is great stuff for people who don't necessarily find themselves drawn into cybersecurity, but find it fascinating. I have a good friend right now who's in the process of applying for another job, doing exactly this for that company. They're talking about going public. They need somebody to come in and advise them on how to develop their policies and procedures. Do they need SOC reports, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So they need someone with a specialty in governance, risk, and compliance. You don't have to be a CISSP to understand that if you have a policy that says you change your passwords every 14 days and you don't, you're going to get into trouble. It's real simple math. What do you say you do? Are you doing it? And if not, what do you got to do to fix it? That's really what I think, in a nutshell, that GRC boils down to. But it's incredibly important because one of my customers used to say, Brian's here because I don't know what I don't know.
There you go.
He was an IT manager and security professional, but he needs somebody to look at his work to double check. And I thought that was one of the smartest things he ever said was, I need somebody looking at what I do to make sure that I don't make a mistake, because it's easy to do when all of that stuff falls on one person's shoulders, or even a team. Mistakes creep into things. That's how the bad guys take care of us. Somebody makes it. I can show you every single major hack that's happened in the last 15 years. Somebody dropped the ball somewhere. That's how it happens. And they find a way in. They don't have to break your best stuff. They can wait until somebody makes a mistake. Because remember, they're doing this 24/7. They're just going tick, 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 waiting for you to make a mistake. And bang, the minute you make a mistake, they've got you. So anyway, that's my thoughts on GRC. It's every bit as important, I think, as security. In fact, I wrote an article years ago for one of the banking organizations about, I called GRC and security the odd couple. They really can't, they're like Felix and what was his partner's name? The Odd Couples series.
Yeah, Felix.
Yeah. One of the guys was real anal and wound up. That's the GRC guy, and the other guy was Oscar was the guy who was loosey goosey doing. That's the security people, because they go in and do everything they think they're supposed to be doing, and it's up to the auditors to come along and go, "You forgot this. You forgot this." We used to call it kicking the wounded. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things I've recognized is just maybe in the last 6 or 8 months is the influx of risk-related jobs out on the job boards. Organizations, I believe, are really starting to embrace the idea that they need a risk management strategy.
Right. Well, it makes sense from a business perspective because you're talking about money. That's what, follow the money is what the FBI teaches you. If you want to know what's going on, follow the money. And it's really about how much risk does this bring to our organization and what's it going to cost us to minimize those or reduce them to a level that we think we can live with. That's what risk management's all about in a nutshell, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I think organizations are beginning to see that. It used to be much more black and white. I can remember sitting in exit interviews after doing bank audits with banker vice presidents and having them yelling and screaming because they didn't think they needed to do something. And it was more about being told what to do than it was about, hey, you're putting your organization at risk and here's what it could cost you. As a GRC professional, I wasn't trained to talk in those terms. I had to learn how to do that. Ergo, the article on the Odd Couple, bringing security and GRC together so that they're not at odds fighting with each other and trying to make the organization more successful.
Well, we'll put something together on that because I think that's an incredibly important topic that businesses are just beginning to fully embrace.
Yeah, I agree.
Brian, the last thing that I just wanted to kind of bring up, we've talked about these kind of paid resources
Sure.
that are out there for training. But one of the things that is a huge resource that I don't think folks really have a good feel for is what the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, offers.
Right.
So, they have a ton of training that is available in a wide range of
all free
topics. Yep. And so I brought up their website. And so, things like resources and tools, especially when you start looking at the 16 critical infrastructures.
This is great stuff. I've not seen this before. This is really good stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. So especially when you look at, going through and getting assessments, cybersecurity assessments done. I know CISA will help businesses do those. And
they'll actually come in and do them for you.
I'm sorry?
They'll actually come in and do some of them for you.
Yeah, right.
The other thing I like about this is it gives that person who maybe they're stuck in a dead-end job, maybe they're stuck in a job they don't like, maybe they're stuck in cybersecurity but at a lower level. They just don't have the resources to go take those expensive courses. I was that way for years. SANS courses, most of them are $5,000 to $10,000 per course. They're really expensive, and you've got to travel and pay for hotel and all that stuff. This is great for the individual who just simply doesn't have the resources to do all that stuff. This is great resource things for them to learn more about the business and industry.
Well, that's kind of all we had for today, Brian. I appreciate your time. Any closing thoughts?
Get started. Get started. Time's a wasting.
Time's a wasting. Yep.
Yeah. Well, the environment is changing so rapidly that I can't keep up with it anymore. I really can't at my age and this part in my career. It's happening so fast that it takes those young minds, or I should say younger minds, to be able to really absorb this stuff and get moving on it because it's happening at breakneck speed. And we need people getting involved in it. We need to make it more attractive. I think we've done a good job as a country in terms of providing educational opportunities for getting into this field. I think there's still some things that we could do, but we just need more professionals. It's that simple. We need more bodies doing this. We're going to try to glamorize it. We got to do a session on how to glamorize IT cybersecurity.
Sure.
That's my focus of the week.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave it at that. So if you found value in this, please like, subscribe, and share this with other folks that you know. Leave some comments in the comment section below in the show notes. And until the next show.
See you next week.
Thank you.
You got it?
Yep.